All right, what's up, everyone? On this week's episode of Together Achieving Greatest, I want to talk about and break down a couple of different movement patterns that are very similar, or that people get confused anyway. They're both lower body. But before we get into that, make sure you are subscribed to my page, you are liking my videos, sharing them with anyone who you think would benefit from them. Anyone who is looking to feel better, look better, move better, be an athlete for life. That's what I'm here for, to help as many people as possible. And as that, let's get right into today's episode. And I'm going to talk about, like I said, a couple of movement patterns that are foundational movement patterns that you should be doing in some form or another. There are a bunch of different variations of each of these movement patterns, and they are the squat and the hip hinge. And why I'm going to focus on these today is because a lot of people kind of screw up their form, or they turn their squat into a hinge, or their hinge into a squat. And if we look at these two movement patterns, you can think of them on like a spectrum. So we got the pure squat over here and the pure hip hinge over here. In the middle, we got kind of a more of like the trap bar deadlift, like I said, which is a little squattier hinge version. There's tons of different variations, and it's all about finding what works best for you. There's no one exercise or movement variation of these that is better than the other. The squat is not a king exercise. The deadlift's not the king exercise. You should be doing both of them in some form or another, some variation. Again, something that works best for you. Something that one variation allows you to get good quality range of motion, good depth if it's a squat, and just good range of motion if it's a hinge as well. But again, it's not one variation that everyone has to do and stick to. Things that you need to look for and what's going to help is just, if you're starting out, have a coach look and see and watch your movement. That is going to help. Or maybe you just watch a bunch of videos online and film yourself and things like that, just to see what you look like. Because don't do it in front of a mirror, because that's just, I'm not a big fan of mirrors in gyms. For using it as form checks anyway, because then you're too busy looking at yourself in the mirror and you're not actually worried about focusing on the form or focusing on executing that exercise to the best of your ability. Again, so we have the two movements, the squat and the hip hinge. So again, a lot of people mix them up and get them confused, and their squat looks hingy, their hinge looks squatty, and we want to make sure we can tell a difference. And again, there's going to be that on that spectrum. Some movements are going to be more towards the middle. Some are going to be pure squat, pure hinge. But let's talk about the squat first and how our squat should ultimately look. When you think of the squat, it is like the name says. It's squatting down. It's going down. Think of like an elevator. You're going down. Think you're putting that butt down to the ground. And again, your range of motion is probably going to be different than mine. If you have terrible ankle mobility, poor hip mobility, all these different things, you have different length of legs, your long femurs, long torso, short femurs, whatever. There's different things that are going to play into what the best variations are for, how deep you can go. But there's this is not, I mean, yes, there's a place and time for quarter squats for like athletes and stuff working on power, but you should be able to get a good quality squat depth. You're just making excuses. And again, it's not saying you have to barbell back squat and get full depth. You could goblet squat. You could front squat. You could belt squat, Zercher squat. You can elevate your heels. That's one of the easiest things to help you get a good range of motion. But think of the squat as going down. Think our knees are breaking first. They're going out over our toes. That's not a bad thing. Again, we don't need to be going way out over here, but our knees are going to go out over our toes originally, or as we start, and then as we come down, they're going to be pulled more back in towards your chest or torso. Ideally, with a squat, we want to keep our torso straighter up. That's the thing with the back squat. A lot of people get like that, and then they turn it into a hinge, and they get way over up front in their chest. That's when back pain can hurt. That's when things happen that form doesn't look too good. So as we even think on the back squat, you can still get squatty. Again, we want to think of stacking your rib cage over your hips. That's a good, pretty safe position as we go down. Again, sometimes, depending on where you're going, you might get a little lean forward, but again, we don't want to turn it into a hinge, which the squat, again, think down, hips, butt down, hinge, think hips, butt, back. So kind of like you're getting punched right through the gut. It's just shooting your butt back, or think you have groceries in your hands and you got to shut that car door with your butt. Think hips, butt back, squat, hips, butt going down. You could even think like, I like to say elevator and escalator, kind of just if that helps. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's something to think. So hips back, hinge, hips butt down, squat. Where we get in trouble is a lot of times when people think they have the barbell back squat, they have bad ankle mobility, they have bad hip mobility, and they go for a back squat and then they turn it into a hinge like that. That's not how we want to do it. If back squat's causing issues, elevate your heels. Things like that. So I'll do an example of that. Again, just simple ways we can work to make our squat squatty and our hinge actually be a hinge and not a squat. So elevating the heels is simple. It takes out the limitations in your ankle mobility, takes a lot of pressure off the knees too, and allows you to go straight down. Think if you ever watched, a lot of times you can see a baby will squat like this, or like in, I believe it's like Japanese culture, they're taking a dump, they squat right down and do that. So think of it that way if you got a weird mind like mine, and think of squatting down like that. So our squats are down, hip hinges are back again. So we don't want to turn, like I said, we don't want to turn our squats into a hinge. Like I said, there are variations, like a trap bar deadlift, which is more of a squattier hinge where you're down in that, depending on the handles. So, but again, squats, think going down, hinges, think butt back first, hips back first. Squats, you can think breaking those knees first and knees going down. Some other things to think about if on the barbell back squat. So this is not how you should load a bar, but I'm just doing it because I am. So barbell back squat, if you struggle, if your squat looks like that, or it's really hingy, you got terrible range of motion, elevate your heels. Try that first. See if that allows you to get good range of motion, take some pressure off the knees, allows you to go straight down. Or if you're causing your torso to go super forward, because with the back squat, your torso is going to go a little bit forward just based on the load of where the bar is. But you can think of a slight hip shift back right away. That might allow you to go keep that torso more upright. Because again, we don't want to be that. That's a hinge. Whereas if we do a Romanian deadlift, that hinge, butt back, back flat. There's our hinge. There's a squat. And again, no two people are going to squat the same. No two people are going to hinge the same. There are some basic principles, fundamentals we want to do, but especially with the squat, it's all about finding your stance first. Some people might be more toes out. Some might be more forward. Again, some might there. Again, there's just different ways based on your bone structure, hip structure, experience level, injury history. So just find what works for you. Again, working with a coach like us here at Take Performance and Nutrition can help you find what's best for you, play around with different things, test different things out. Maybe heels elevated is best for you, whatever. It's all about finding what works for you. You don't have to squat one certain way, like I said. Movement patterns. Let's talk about some different squat variations. Again, start out a body weight squat. Master that before you start doing anything else. Goblet squats with a dumbbell or a kettlebell are great. Then you move on to like front squats, Zercher squats, barbell back squats. Again, you don't have to barbell back squat unless you're a power lifter. You never have to use that. I mean, it's a great exercise, but for many people, it just causes more harm than good. You can belt squat. You can use pendulum squat. You can use, there's so many different variations. I'm not going to name off them because we're going to be here all day, but it's about finding what works for you and your body and your experience level and what allows you to make progress and feel good doing it, not causing a bunch of pain. Maybe the back squat crushes your back or destroys your shoulders. Go to a safety bar. So there's so many, like I said, there's so many different ways. With the deadlift or with the hip hinge, you think of the barbell deadlift from the floor, which a lot of people don't need to be doing. Again, unless you're a power lifter, you can elevate it a little bit so it gives you a much more comfortable position on your spine. You got RDLs, so the deadlift you're starting from the floor. The RDLs you're starting from up here, straight upright position, and then you're hinging. Whereas the deadlift you're starting in a hinge position and then coming up. So you got deadlift, barbell, trap bar, sumo. You got RDLs, so you could do dumbbells, barbells. You could use a machine. You could use a trap bar, single leg. There's, like I said, there's so many different variations. I have plenty of videos on my page if you're looking more into some different variations that you want to try out, test out. But again, the main point I want to get is that the hinge and the squat are two different movement patterns. Again, as we get towards the center of that so-called spectrum or scale, if you want, they start to kind of blend together. But we don't, with like a trap bar deadlift, which is fine. But if we're doing a squat, I like to have people make their squats more squatty. Again, that stacked upright torso over the hips and going down. And then the hinge is hips back, butt back. Really get that stretch in the hamstrings. So that's just a little bit about those two different movement patterns. Again, no one exercise or one movement for each pattern is necessary. I do think everyone should find some variation of a squat, of a hinge that works for them, or a couple different variations, and cycle those, change those out at different times, just so you can progress and get better. Because we want you to not be in pain when you're training. We want you to feel good and make progress, build muscle, build power, build speed. And these are two great movements to do it. But it's all about finding what variations work for you and make sure you're doing them right and proper. Again, yes, sometimes once you get heavier, they always say don't let your knees cave in. And of course, we don't want to purposely go down and cave our knees in. But at times, yes, if you're going heavy, sometimes your form's going to get a little out of whack. Your knees might cave in a little bit, but that's normal. That happens, especially if you're an athlete. That happens in sports. That happens in life. You're out on the ice, walking, and you slip, your knee goes in. And if you're doing this, it's going to just strengthen stuff, strengthen tendons, strengthen muscle, so you're less likely to actually get hurt from it. But there's chaos in the world, in sport. Again, we're not purposely necessarily putting 300 pounds on our back and squatting like this, but at times, yes, knees might cave in a little bit. That's just part of lifting heavy stuff. Our form is not always going to be perfect, but it's striving to have excellent technique, excellent execution through these movement patterns. And if you guys have any questions on either the squat or the hinge, or wondering what is the best variation for you, reach out, comment below us, or send me an email, trevor@tagpn.com, and we'll be in touch Thanks for watching, guys. This is another episode of Together Achieving Greatness. Make sure you subscribe and like the video, and we'll talk to you soon.